Every masterpiece begins with a blank canvas, and this report are no different. So there are many kinds of artwork that begins with actions and progress. But before that, let me introduce myself. I am Chani Mendez Patwal, and I will going to tackle all about the mediums of painting. Before that, what is mediums of painting? So the mediums of painting, it is a substance or materials that is used by an artist to create an artwork. So let's dig deeper into it, and before we proceed, let me introduce to you the pictures or the examples of artworks that is used in the mediums of painting. So these are the pictures of painting, the pastel, the acrylic, and the watercolor. But painting refers to the materials which are used by an artist. It is the means by which he communicates his ideas. So, as I said earlier, that the mediums of painting are any kind of materials or substance that in order to create a powerful artwork. So, many mediums have been used in creating different works of art. So, let's start first with the oil painting. So, ano nga ba ang oil painting? So, ang oil painting, before that, let me define what is the history of it. So, the oil painting came from the roots of the Afghanistan, and it gained prominence in the early Netherlandish period. So let's define now what is oil painting. So the oil painting is the process of painting which pigments are bound with a medium of drying oil. Especially it started in the early modern Europe. The oil painting is a traditional technique in which the pigments are mixed with a drying oil such as, so these are different kinds of oil such as linseed oil, we have the poppy oil, the safflower oil, and the walnut oil. So as a search, we have different kinds of oil that is used in the oil painting. So there are many kinds of essential materials used in oil painting, but we have here the essential. So ito ay mga importanteng materials na ginagamit natin sa pag-paint ng oil painting. So we have here the canvas, especially the canvas, or if wala tayong canvas, we have here the panel, the palette, the oil paints, and the brushes. So as I mentioned, marami tayong ginagamit na oil sa paggawa ng oil painting. So we have here the linseed oil. So ang linseed oil, it is a traditional medium used in oil painting. In order to thin or the paint, pinapanipis nito ang isang paint because we see as we use oil painting, ginagawa nito ang oil painting na mabagal mag-dry. So we have here the linseed oil para mas maging manipis ang isang paint. So and also the linseed oil increases its flows. So the difference of oil painting in the different kinds of mediums of painting is it is very slow in drying. So mabagal itong matuyo. So pero maganda din ang resulta ng oil painting. So now let's proceed to the next one. We have here the pastel. The pastel is painting. So now let's proceed to the next one. We have here the pastel. The pastel is a painting that uses a medium of sticks. So it is a form of fine arts that uses a colored sticks. So if you are familiar in a color, they are similar but different in texture. So we the pastel uses and consists of powdered pigment and a binder. So it is unique. The pastel is unique because it can create creative work or artwork without the use of brush strokes. So just unlike the oil painting or the watercolor, we will use brushes, but the in the pastel, we can create an artwork without the use of different kinds of brushes. So the artists used it directly. They used the colored sticks directly into the paper or into a volume, without the use of the brush strokes. And there are many different types of pastel. We have here the soft pastel. So the soft pastel consists of high pigment, and low in binder. But we have here also the other types of pastel. It is the hard pastel. So the hard pastel is low in pigment but more in binder. So pigments used in pastels are the same as those used to produce all colored art media, including oil paints. The binder is of a neutral hue and low of saturation. So the color effect of pastel is closer to the natural dry pigments than that of any other process. So pastels are favored for their brighter colors and ease of use. And also it has the ability to create an artwork or to create a range without the use of brushes. That's why it is unique and also easy to dry, unlike what I've said in the oil painting. So because the oil painting has have low in drying, while the pastel is fast in drying the artwork. So the earliest works of art with the use of pastels were produced in Renaissance Italy in the 17th century. As we can see in the picture, it is really bright. Italy in the 17th century. As we can see in the picture, it is really bright because we know that the pastel is known for its brighter color and ease of use. And also, as we can see, that mabilis lang talagang mag-dry ang pastels. And also, because of its colors, it emphasizes more the artwork and it attracts more the viewers because of its brighter colors that's used by an artist. So let's proceed to the next one. We have here the acrylic. So the acrylic is a paint, or it is a fast drying paint containing pigment suspension in acrylic polymer emulsion. So acrylic is a form of arts that uses a watercolor based, wherein it is a fast drying color or a fast drying paint made of use of pigments in suspended to the acrylic polymer emulsion. Meaning to say, the acrylic is made of tiny particles of acrylic resin and pigments. Acrylic are water soluble and it become water resistant once dry, and also it can be thinned with water or acrylic medium to achieve different effects. So there are many mediums of surface we can apply the acrylic paint. We have here the canvas in either in the wood or in the MDF. The acrylic was developed in the 1930s and widely used by an artist since 1960s. We have here different kinds of techniques, including the layering the layering, the glazing, the dry brushing, and also the pouring. So in order to give different kinds of effects in our acrylic painting. Let's proceed to the last one of the mediums of painting. We have here the watercolor. So the watercolor denotes a painting medium in which color pigments are bound in water soluble agents. So the watercolor involves pigments suspended in water-based solution in which it is applied with a brush, just like the oil painting and the acrylic. So it uses a brush in order to create an artwork, and also it have the price to its water or transparent color solution. And the watercolors are highly versatile medium. They can be applied to everything from paper to canvas, stone, wood, and fabric. So watercolors can be general, so it can be applied either in stones, either in canvas, or either in paper, but the outcome of it is quite similar. So many fine versions of watercolor paintings rendered on paper. So as we can see, as we noticed, unti lamang ang gumagamit ng watercolor sa mga stone, and typically they applied the watercolor on a paper or sometimes in a vellum and even on ivory. And also the manuscripts, maps, and miniatures can be found in our museums today. So the watercolor is typically applied with the use of brushes to support, and just like I said, to support like in the paper, in the canvas, and even in ivory. So the watercolor is known for its transparent color. We have here the different kinds of techniques used in watercolor paint. So the first one is wet on wet. So wet on wet is applying the paint to wet surface in order to the work for the paint to blend and flow naturally. So again, the wet on wet is applying paint to wet surface, allowing color. So it allows the color to blend and flow naturally. So the second one is wet on dry. The first one is wet on wet, and the second one is wet on dry. So the wet on dry is applying paint to a dry surface. So it create more defined edges and control the color saturation. Furthermore, the basic word for the watercolor describes a medium in which dry pigment is mixed first with a binder and with a watercolor, and also it applied with a brush to support the vellum, the paper, the canvas, or even in the ivory. So as we can see also here, the watercolor are not only applied in the papers or other materials, but it was in the earliest they also used the watercolor in the stone. So it is not quite unique, because as we see in the other painting, makikita natin na gumagamit lang sila ng mga gumagamit sila ng mga papers. But in the stones, it is quite unique because we are used to see that the watercolors are used only in the papers or canvas. That's all for our topic for today. I hope everyone learned all about our discussion focuses on the mediums of painting. which are I discussed to you the parts of the mediums of painting. We have the oil painting, the pastel, acrylic, and the watercolor paint. And the other parts of the mediums of painting will be tackled by my classmates. So once again, my name is Jenny J. Mendez Patwal, and this is the course GE Art Appreciation. Paintings is the silent thought, and the music is the sight. And that's all. Thank you.